millions of dollars. And my original idea for this was Ivo was paying an app developer, I think $250 or $500 to add the simplest feature ever to the rowing app we used last year. And I was like, I'm a CS major. Like, I can do that in 30 minutes. Like, I want $250. Like, give me that. And he was like, okay, go make your own app. So I was like, okay, perfect. I'm going to go do that. And it did not start at all as a holistic training picture. It was simply an app to track rowing scores and force curves and stuff like that. And I was like, hey, like, I used to work in data analytics. I can make this so much more. And that's when RowIQ shifted from a simple ripoff of like erg data or something into entire training ecosystem where we're going to track ergs, nutrition, Garmin stats, health stats, and then also we're in partnership with a Penn engineering team for telemetry, and that's going to roll out this spring. So,
everybody, welcome to RowingCast, episode 2 of our next season. We got Will Tran here. Will, we're going to talk to you about your rowing career, and then later on, we're going to talk about your entrepreneur, skills and what RowIQ has to bring to an individual and to a team. So, how are you doing today, Will?
I'm doing great. Back in my hometown, Chicago. Just getting ready for this upcoming season with LaSalle. It's my senior season. I want to win Vails. Also with RowIQ, I'm super excited to be leading that, and I want to make a huge change in the rowing community because I think it's time that rowers receive better analytics.
So, Will, let's talk about it. How'd you get into the sport of rowing? And prior to the sport of rowing, like, what were you about? Did you play any other sports? What was Will like prior to rowing?
Yeah, so Will before rowing was very, very non-athletic, I would say, in terms of endurance. I did do some biking, but I was a baseball player before rowing, and I was actually pretty decent. We won the city championships, and my dad was the coach, but this led to me having a fair bit of nepotism when it came to training and getting onto teams. So I ended up going to Lane Tech, which is a pretty notorious baseball school in Chicago. They've won multiple state championships. And I thought I was just going to make the team just by being there. And that did not happen. It did not happen at all. So I was like, shoot, like a big part of me, which was baseball, is not here anymore. And I need to find a replacement. And luckily, I found rowing, which I ended up rowing for CRF in Chicago. And I was like, dang, like I really like this sport. I get to train every single day, and I pretty much see instant feedback on my changes. It's a little bit faster than baseball because baseball, you kind of have to wait till a game. You do a lot of drills, a lot of mobility work. But with rowing, it's like, okay, well, I did this steady state and I felt a little bit better than yesterday. So I think I'm doing a little bit better. And I really enjoyed that, and I like to grind. And I just fell in love with rowing my freshman year of high school, which was 2019 to 2020, but we had COVID. So, obviously that didn't happen.
So speak a little bit on CRF. So like, what is the vibe there? I was actually just visiting some sailing centers, some rowing centers, only one really, but tell us about what CRF is about and, like, what's the vibe there?
Yeah, so CRF is a pretty high intensity junior program. My freshman year, they definitely whipped us into shape. We were constantly doing these things called Indian runs, a lot of land days, and boat selection was entirely on 2K, which was something I liked. It was a pretty objective way for me to understand how well I was doing, which was different from baseball where, you don't really know because the coach just kind of makes lineups based on what he saw at practice, and you don't have any objective scores in baseball unless you're a pitcher, which I wasn't. But with rowing, I really got to put in the work myself and understand what was going on. By the time I got to be a sophomore and junior, I really started to see progress take off, and I fell in love with the sport even more. And it put a place for me to put frustration from high school and just life into something because, as we all know, you have to be somewhat of a masochist to enjoy rowing because the practices are not at all easy, nor are they something you want to show up to every single day.
Without a doubt. Hey, I know about it. So tell me about this, Will. as a youth rower, you were actually documenting some of your, erging. Can you speak on that and like making content as a rower, especially, we see a lot of it like on the national team, we see it on college level teams now, but like making content as a youth rower, what was that like, and what experience did you get from that?
Yeah, honestly, making content as a youth rower is probably one of the best choices I could ever make. It made me a network that I'm using now to distribute RowIQ. And the reason I got into posting my content on YouTube was actually because coaches didn't believe my 2K when I just sent it to them. So I was like, okay, well, I got to document this. Not going to name drop who it was who didn't believe me, but that was the reason why I documented my 2K on YouTube, because coaches actually just didn't believe what my 2K was. So that was why I documented rowing on YouTube. And honestly, it felt really good. Like, even if coaches did believe my 2K, I still think that everyone should document their rowing journey on YouTube. One, because it gives you another pillar for motivation. Because if you look at the comment section on any of my 2K YouTube videos, it's kids saying they were inspired by what I did. They want to know how I did it. And they're just saying good job. So not only did I get motivation, but I was also able to provide feedback for other rowers who were not as fast as they wanted to be. And for reference, I'm like 5'9". I weighed like 155 pounds in high school. So it gave a lot of hope to other rowers, especially Asian rowers who weren't as prominent in the sport as they are now. And they still aren't super prominent, but a lot of Asian rowers reached out to me. I'm also Asian. Reached out to me and they were like, hey, like, how did you do this? Like, I want to do what you did.
That's pretty dope. And then just speak on it. And I have a quick question because, I coached in Dallas, Texas, and I remember one time Chicago came down and raced on our river, right? Not our river, but our lake. Were you one part of that team that came down, that Chicago rowing that came down to race White Rock and Dallas United Crew by chance?
No, I was not in that boat. I remember
Okay.
it happening though. I do remember that happening. I was not in that boat, but I do remember racing you guys at American Youth Cup.
Okay, that's pretty dope. So yeah, I went to a bunch of AYCs, and I love it probably was AYC 1. That was the one that we usually went to. But speak on your rowing career and like what were some highlights of your youth rowing, and then you spoke on like being an inspiration for other Asian like rowers and stuff like that. If you want to talk a little bit about that some more, and we'll dive deep in that.
Yeah, so my rowing career started, and basically we didn't do a 2K until February. So we had a lot of training, and going into this 2K, we did these things called progressions, which was basically you do 1K at 2K pace, and the standard at Chicago was 7 minutes. So we had the 7-minute standard, and you would do like a 1K at 7 minutes, 1250, 1500, and you'd eventually work your way up to 2K. So I got to the 1500 or 1750 mark, I can't remember, and I broke 7 or 144.9 on that. Got to the 2K, my first 2K was 712, and I was 14 or 15 at this time, and I was like, I need sub 7. Then COVID happened, and that was pretty rough. I took about a year off of rowing and just was an idiot teenager during COVID, I'm sure, as many other people were. But then I came back to the sport, and my first 2K back was 722. I was like, dang, like I fell off a lot. I need to get back into this. Came back into it, put my heart and soul into it. Within a month, broke sub 7. Then the following month after that went 645. And I was like, dang, like I can really, really put some work into this. That, and going into my sophomore year, got a little bit better at racing, got really into like the college recruiting aspect, even though I wasn't talking to coaches yet. Broke 640. And then I got kind of stuck at the 630 mark. I was lightweight, and 630 mark was kind of where a lot of lightweight athletes stress out about, because we know once you break 630, lightweight coaches really start to look at you. So I got really stuck at 630, and I was 633 all the way through my junior year. And then during my senior year, I went 630 flat, which was heartbreaking. Almost got recruited to lightweight schools, didn't, because I didn't break 630. And then my senior year, ended up leaving Chicago for Lincoln Park Boat Club, rode the single there, and broke 630 there, which was really, really nice. I went 629 or 627 or something like that. Rode the single at Lincoln Park for 2 months, and this was definitely the biggest moment in my rowing career. I was a senior at this point, and I rode the single at Lincoln Park probably 3 times a day. We had off-campus lunch at Lane Tech, which was my high school. I would go to morning practice by myself at Lincoln Park. Then I would usually skip one of my classes and off-campus lunch to go row the single. And then after school, I would go to the gym, or I'd go to afternoon practice at Lincoln Park. And this really, really, really showed me what it was to be a rower, because rowers need to grind, they need to put an effort, and they don't always see what's coming next. And what came next was actually placing 6th at youth nationals and 4th in the time trial at youth nationals, despite only training the single for 2 months. So this not only showed me, hey, this is a sport you're really good at, but also, hey, like, if you put in the work to anything in life, you really can achieve it. Like, I was putting in probably 7 hours of training a day in single in a boat I never rowed before. 2 months later, I'm placing 6th in the youth nationals in the youth single, and then 4th in the time trial.
That's truly amazing. And then to think about that, to come from a huge team to going down to the single, what did you learn from that?
What I learned from that is, I think in the 8, you shift a lot of the responsibility off of yourself and onto your teammates, which, you know, is true because you have other teammates in the boat and they need to pull their own weight. But in the single, you truly learn that you are responsible for your own actions, and that the work you put in is the work you're going to get out. Like, if my boat goes slower in the single, that is entirely my fault. If my boat goes faster in the single, that is entirely what I did. So I really enjoyed it for that aspect, because every time I put in a power 10, I knew the boat was going to go faster because I'm the only one controlling it. So that's one reason I really like the single. One reason I really hate the single is because you're alone. So it's kind of a paradox. You hate being alone, but you also like being alone because you get to control exactly what's going on in the boat.
Yeah, I'd say just like the erg, it's so receptive. You kind of know right off the jump, you know, is that a good stroke? Is that a bad stroke? You know, so on and so forth. So that's pretty amazing. And then speaking on just, you know, representing your community, not a lot of Asians. It's starting to be a big thing in the Asian community, rowing, but can you speak on that as well?
Yeah. So being an Asian in the sport of rowing, there's like 2 different types of us, I would say. One type of us is because we genuinely enjoy the sport, and the other type I've started to see come out, and this isn't the best type, is a lot of Asian parents, including mine, are super strict on getting to good universities. And rowing is a great pathway into Ivy Leagues and some really good schools. Now, this has been like Asian culture forever, and I'm only speaking on this because I'm Asian, but Asian parents will likely, or oftentimes, put their kids in situations, no matter what the cost is, in order for them to go to a great school. And, you know, some of these situations like Kumon or academic tutoring centers, you know, they're reasonable and like they don't put too much stress on the athlete. But being a rower, I know how stressful it is to drop your 2K and how hard that is. And sometimes, well, actually all the time, Asian parents have no idea what is actually going on because they are not rowers themselves. And they don't understand how hard this is. And to them, 0.1 seconds is nothing, but to you, it can mean the world. So what I'm getting back to this is the first group of Asian rowers actually want to do it because they're there. And the second group are Asian rowers that are there because their parents saw Harvard on a rowing recruits application and were like, you're going to go do this.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I coach a lot of Asians that like first generation, you know, here in the States. And dude, a lot of them, they just master it. They really go to try to master it and do the best that they can. They're very, you know, they're like, I don't know if they have the stress from their parents. I know I talked to some of the parents and they would stress on it, but I would be more of a realist and be like, hey, I'm just, these are the numbers, and this is where he's at now. This is where the athlete is now. And let's really look at it. But let's also understand that it teaches, great discipline. And I guarantee you, just seeing someone that looks like them to see go D1, row for LaSalle, a growing, D1 program must be amazing. So let's talk about that. How'd you get into LaSalle University? I know you were looking to row lightweight, but now you're open weight. So let's tell us about that process.
Yeah, so my rowing career has been all over the place. I started off in San Diego, ended up not rowing there. I was on a cycling team in LA for a little bit, and I actually was super into cycling. I won some tour races in LA, so I ended up getting really into cycling. But then one of my favorite coach from my youth era, RJ Rubino, who's the head coach at Buffalo Rowing now. He was like, Will, you're too good to quit this sport. Like, we got to figure out how to get you to row in college and then come back and race for me at Canadian Henley, which ended up happening. And he was like, I'm going to put you in contact and you are going to row in college because you are too good to quit this sport and I cannot see you waste your talent. So like, okay, RJ, like, let's figure this out. So one coach I knew from high school was Ivo, who is now my head coach. He was like, hey, like, we talked to RJ, like, we really like you. We want to recruit you. And this was during, I would say, the fall of my freshman year at San Diego. And I ended up ghosting Ivo. I was like, I'm happy here. I got a girlfriend. And that's actually one of the main reasons I didn't transfer. I was like, I'm in San Diego. I'm biking. I'm happy. I had a girlfriend. And I didn't end up transferring. Fast forward to spring, bike racing kind of slows down a little bit and broke up with my girlfriend. And I was like, hey, like, I'm not happy here. And I think I was filling a hole of rowing a little bit with a relationship and biking. That's not what I actually want to be doing. So I was like, hey, Ivo, like, I want to row. And he was like, okay, awesome. Let's bring you on. And I was still very hesitant to leave because I still really enjoyed biking. And I didn't end up committing to LaSalle until I think July or August of the incoming school year. So I had about a month before school started. And I was like, okay, I'm actually going to go do this.
That's amazing to go from San Diego to going to Philadelphia. That must be, a shift and a half, but not too bad of a shift. But so deciding to go pretty late on in the summer. I mean, for the most part, coaches kind of already know their roster. They already know who's coming in. What does that first year at LaSalle look like for you?
Yeah. So, I mean, I went from basically a NARP, and if you know what that means, it's like a normal, regular person. That's what we call them in college. But I went from not rowing at all for a year to being on a Division I team. And I was like, dang, like, I got to prove myself. Like, I can't let Ivo down. Like, he brought me on. He believed in me. He gave a scholarship to someone who didn't row in an entire year. Like, I thought I was very grateful for it, but I was like, dang, like, this might not seem fair to other people. Like, I got to make sure I'm here and actually put in the work. So coming into LaSalle, I put in so much work to get faster. Ended up dropping my 2K to 622 on myself from 629. And then I got to LaSalle, put in the work. And are you familiar with telemetry?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. So the first practice at LaSalle, I was very much the worst rower on the water, despite having a pretty fast 2K on the erg. And it took a lot of work. I was like, dang, like, this is really exposing me. I'm the worst rower on the water. And over time, got to be one of the better rowers on the team. Ended up finishing in the varsity 8 this year as a 5 seat at IRAs and Dadvales. So I was really happy about that. And just really enjoyed the grind at LaSalle. It brought me back to the sport I love and just provided a team that I wanted to grind with and believe in.
Yeah, let's speak a little bit about it. The Philadelphia rowing culture is very rich. I think it's one of the first cities in America that had rowing. So to come from, now rowing for a year to like being in like the heart of it, the heart of rowing almost in the States. What was that like?
To be honest, the Schuylkill is not my favorite place to train by any means. I really do like training on my own, or not on my own, but like on a lake or river that no other team shares. I think I get distracted a lot by other teams that are there. So I definitely do prefer training on a lake or river that only my team is on. But it's really nice having the other teams there. I'm friends with some of the Drexel, Temple guys, St. Joe's, and I love hanging out with them. It provides me a different perspective on rowing other than LaSalle. So it's really fun to be around with them. Yeah.
For sure. And I can imagine that, as the business starts to grow too, those I won't call them enemies, but those right competitors, they will then somewhat be an asset to you later on in the future as well. So that's great. Any Dadville memories, any big racing memories that you wanna bring to the forefront?
Yeah. In terms of racing at LaSalle, my favorite race at LaSalle has probably been stroking the club for my freshman year. I had never stroked a boat before, nor have I ever raced ahead of the Charles. And stroking the four ahead of the Charles was like, dang, like I went from not rowing last year at all to stroking a boat at the biggest race in the world, that one I've never been to. That was my favorite racing memory at LaSalle. We ended up placing 7th despite only practicing the lineup a couple days. And then in terms of Dadvales, unfortunately, I have not won Dadvales, but this past year was a little bit unfortunate. We had some mechanical issues in the boat and ended up having to swap shells 10 minutes before the race. They delayed the V8 final 10 minutes or 15 minutes for us to swap shells. So that was crazy. And I still think we did really well despite the situations. We ended up losing by, I think, maybe 3 or 4 seconds, I think.
Yeah. So going into your last year, this is coming up on your last year with LaSalle. What are some goals? What are some of the guys thinking? Like, what's the mindset going into this year?
Yeah, I mean, my mindset is like, this is my last year of rowing, likely ever. I have another year of eligibility in grad school if I ever did want to take it, but I don't know if I will. And my mindset is I'm 609 right now. I did not PR my 2K last year. I want to break 6 this year. That's my goal. And I want to bring the guys up with me and be a leader on the team. I really want us to win Vales while I'm here. That'd be really special to me. I think Ivo brought me on to be a leader on this team and help the team win Vales. And I don't think my job is done at LaSalle until that happens.
And I'm guessing with your individual mindset, that's the way that I'm looking at you as I'm interviewing you. But like using the erg to help benefit, getting out there on the water. What is the off season looking like for you training wise?
Man, the off season is actually me working nonstop on RowIQ. I do some steady state and some interval work pretty quickly throughout the day, but during the summer, it really gives me time to focus on RowIQ and the platform that over 1,000 rowers use now. And I think I owe it to them during the summer to really give them the best platform I can, because during the school year, I got class, I got rowing, I have my friends, I have a lot of other responsibilities. So during the school year, I really want to put as much time, during the summer, I want to put as much time as I can into RowIQ, because I know that's kind of limited during the school year.
In the end, what, just off of experience, I could see it looking at the app. You made yourself like a test athlete for the platform for my school, and I could already see the meters you were putting in. So I know you're putting in the work and putting in the work on RowIQ. So that leads me to the question: when did the concept of RowIQ come up, and what is it like so far, and what's that been like?
Yeah, so this is a recurring question. This is the question I get asked the most out of anyone. It's like, how did you come up with this idea? Like, this is so different and so new. RowIQ is actually the only platform that does what we do. And what we do is we correlate all athletes' training data to give them a holistic picture on their training, which is completely missing from rowing, but it's in sports like football, baseball, basketball, because those sports bring in billions of dollars. And my original idea for this was Ivo was paying an app developer, I think $250 or $500 to add the simplest feature ever to the rowing app we used last year. And I was like, I'm a CS major. Like, I can do that in 30 minutes. Like, I want $250. Like, give me that. And he was like, okay, go make your own app. So I was like, okay, perfect. I'm going to go do that. And it did not start at all as a holistic training picture. It was simply an app to track rowing scores and force curves and stuff like that. And I was like, hey, like, I used to work in data analytics. I can make this so much more. And that's when RowIQ shifted from a simple ripoff of like erg data or something into entire training ecosystem where we're going to track ergs, nutrition, Garmin stats, health stats, and then also we're in partnership with a Penn engineering team for telemetry, and that's going to roll out this spring. So rowers will have one platform to log all their training data from whether it's on the erg, the kitchen, their sleep habits, and then onto the water.
I think that's amazing, and I think this is what the sport needs. So just the background behind it, I think that's amazing too. Is like, hey, coach is already using resources to try to set something up, but hey, coach, I think I could do better than that. So where do you see RowIQ at the, let's say, by the end of your school year? Like, where do you see RowIQ being? What is that going to look like?
Dang. I mean, if we look at our roadmap for this year, we have our projection target at 9,000 users by the end of the school year, I think. So that's our projection target for the end of the school year. Right now, we're at about 1,200, 1,500 users, and it's growing like 30, 40 users a day. So that our projection target is 9,000 users by the end of the school year. I think this is totally possible. I think August is the slowest month out of the year for rowing. It's in between like Canadian Henley and like school starting back up. We have users in 70 different countries. So I think our main way of distribution is honestly people just using it in their erg rooms and really enjoying it, and their teammates being like, hey, what is this? And then it's spreading throughout rowing clubs. And our goal is just to create the best rowing product we can. And I think if we do that, then it will just spread naturally. And so far, that's what we have done. If you look at our marketing on Instagram, it usually has nothing to do with RowIQ. It is just building brand awareness and people to know the name. And then eventually, I think through the product just being really great and providing really good insights to rowers, that it will just take off and build the community that we want to. And so far, that's what we've been doing.
And I could see the value in it, but I want you to describe it a bit here. For the individual, what is the value of RowIQ? And then for an organization, what's the value of RowIQ?
Yeah. So I was on a youth rowing team as well. I'm on a college rowing team right now. And my youth rowing team had like 70 athletes. My college rowing team has 30 or 40 athletes. Your coach does, I know your coach loves you. Your coach wants the best for you. But your coach doesn't have the time to look at your Garmin, your erg data, spreadsheets. Like, are you familiar with the spreadsheet behind the erg? Like so when you finish an erg piece, there's a spreadsheet with thousands of data points. No one has the time to look through that and understand it either. So coaches want to give the best feedback to athletes, and athletes want this feedback for themselves. But I can't, as an athlete, be on the phone with my coach 2 hours a day. And there's not enough hours in the day for my coach to give that feedback to every single athlete. So what we do is, for athletes, we take all your training metrics from your Garmin, your eating apps, your erg data, and hopefully your water in the future, correlate that data, and based off of your goals that you set in the app, we tell you exactly what you need to do better. And we don't believe in just telling you what's going wrong, but we actually give you drills and technical feedback within the app to fix it. So for example, let's say your force curve is not matching your teammates. It's too much on the back end side. We'll tell you a drill to make your force curve peak more towards the front. So having a stronger catch or having your heels planted at the catch is going to give you a stronger force curve at the front. And this way, it tells athletes what they need to do in the moment, and it saves coaches time from being like hey, I need to text 30 athletes today and analyze every single one of their force curves so they all match up. Instead, it's done automatically on both ends. So we're the connector between the athlete and the coach. And by the time that the athlete actually comes to the coach, they have 90% of the work done. And the coach is like, hey, like, let's just do this one little thing different. And then you're going to match up with the team. You're going to make it varsity eight.
That's a pretty holistic view into it. And hey, I think that was a really good description for both the individual and the organization overall. Let's talk about it. So you said you were working with some pin engineers. What is that going to look like for telemetry?
Yeah, so we're pretty separate right now. They are developing the hardware on their own. And once we get the hardware in our hands, luckily we live in the same city, so bringing hardware across the city isn't that hard. So once we get the hardware in our hands, we're going to do the software integration for RowIQ. And what this is going to look like is it's a budget-friendly version of telemetry. And basically, if you're not familiar with telemetry systems can cost $8,000 a year on subscription, or they can cost $16,000 if you just want to buy them completely out for forever and you own them. I also think telemetry is a cheat tool. And although it's legal, it gives some teams a much greater advantage and almost unfair. And I personally believe that all rowing teams should have access to this technology. So we want to provide a budget-friendly version of telemetry, as well as connecting our telemetry to all aspects of your training data, which has never been done before.
So with RowIQ and then your season starting up, what are some things that you're looking forward to? And then what is that going to look like? Are you going to, when you graduate, are you going to be RowIQ full time? Are you going to be working elsewhere? Like, what is that going to look like for you personally?
Yeah, so when I graduate, honestly, I want to, start trying to build my future life. I want to, unfortunately, I just went through a breakup. So building a life with that person isn't on the table. But I want to be a family-oriented guy and build that out. But I think before building that out, you have to be stable and save up some money, provide a platform for that. So ideally, yes, RowIQ is full-time. I have another app coming out, which I won't discuss because it's not even rowing related, but I think there's a lot of traction for that among college people in general. And, if it comes to it, I would love to get a full-time job as well, but still keep RowIQ on the side, but not really on the side, more like I work from like 6 to 10 p.m. on RowIQ and then work a full-time job. But yeah, I mean, I would love to see RowIQ be a full-time job. I love rowing. I love coding. I love solving problems. I love leading a team. RowIQ team is 4 people right now. So I have loved being a leader in that sense. So yeah, I would love to see RowIQ be a full-time thing.
And then how do you work on brand recognition so far within the sport of rowing? The sport of rowing, it's very niche, but, when it comes to it, the community is very much knit together. It's pretty easy to kind of connect with one another, and one person knows one person that knows another, and they can kind of get the ball rolling.
Yeah, and this connects back to why I'm glad I started my YouTube channel. When I started RowIQ, I was like, okay, well, I have a YouTube channel I can distribute through. And basically, that made it super easy. I'm super grateful to everyone who's ever subscribed to my YouTube channel, because when we launched RowIQ, we're basically telling athletes this is going to change your training forever and that you need to trust us. And I built that trust through years and years of posting on YouTube. So it made it really, really easy for us to distribute. Now, how we distribute now that we're past the initial, hey, trust us and you're going to get better, and we have a lot of users, how we go about this now is we basically just reach out to rowing influencers and we're like, hey, try this out. If you like it, post about it. If you don't have to post about it. We do a lot of in-person marketing. So we just had a booth at IDR and we talked to a lot of athletes there, give them free trials of the rowing software. And in my opinion, the more people that know RowIQ exists, the more people that will download it. Everyone's looking to make rowing easier. It's not an easy sport to do, so anything that helps will help. And I see that if RowIQ is a good product and it's free, which it is to try, and actually you could use RowIQ for free for the entirety of using the app, but you could honestly just distribute RowIQ through just making it a good product, and that's what we've done.
Well, that's great to hear. Will, last question here. What advice would you give to youth rowers? What advice would you give to collegiate rowers? And then, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, what advice I'd give to youth rowers? It really depends where you are. If you want to go to college, you got to understand that rowing is a sport that is blowing up right now, and it is not going to slow down. There's a Netflix documentary that's coming out about rowing, or not a documentary, but like a Love Island sort of TV show, which I'm not the biggest fan of, but anything to help promote the sport of rowing. And it's really only going to get harder from here. I see lightweights in high school going into the 16s, and if you want to row in college, you really got to take it seriously. Now, if you don't want to row in college, have fun with it, enjoy it, do it because you love it. For college athletes, I think you got to understand that even though you made it to basically the highest level in rowing, besides U23 and national team stuff, don't take it for granted. You have 4 years in college to do the sport you love and chose to do. So take what you can from it, learn from it, build a community, and make sure that you use your rowing to not only get better in high school and make your team better, but also take the connections you have out of college for rowing, because they will be extremely valuable. All your teammates in college are the most driven people in the world. It takes a lot of effort to get there, and the people you meet in college through rowing are some of the best people you'll ever meet in your life.
Well, Will, tell the people where they can find you. Where can they find RowIQ? And thank you for your time today, brother.
Yeah, you can find me on YouTube, Instagram. My number is, I'm not going to say that, but you can find RowIQ on Instagram, TikTok, and you can download RowIQ for free on the App Store. And Android coming out in about a week, I'd say.
Well, hey, this has been William Tran. This has been RowingCast. Everybody, peace out.